James Tybury's Wild Tales and Misadventures.
This is Reactor Radio, all radioactive, all stories, all the time. This week's story, Electric Fudge. Sometimes things don't go the way you thought they should. The darkness enclosed the snow-covered mountain. Big dry flakes continued to fall from the sky as a figure appeared wrapped in protective layers against the cold. This figure trudged through the waist-high drifts to a small shack almost hidden by layers of snow at the apex of a ridgeline. Struggling with the door, they finally entered with a crash. A woman looked up from a table, startled by the noise. "So how was it?" she asked, eyebrows raised. The figure removed its layers to reveal a man. "It was okay, hardly any buildup of snow on the dish. Better safe than sorry." "Yeah." His smirk said something else. The light from a fireplace lit up the room in a yellow, warm glow. LED lights arrayed around a table illuminated a small computer lab's worth of equipment with a small screen in the middle. The screen lit up with text and beeped. "Incoming," she said, shifting herself in front of the screen and a keyboard. After a bit of tapping by the woman, the coded message appeared on the screen. "Climb Mount Jade," she read. "This is it," said the man. Moving to a table, he flipped several switches on one box, and a series of green lights appeared. He observed the lights for a moment. "We are ready." The woman tapped on her keyboard some more until a flashing indicator appeared on her screen. "Counting down," she said. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She hit a key on the keyboard. Paul Gladstone could not believe his ears. The computer was howling at him from the speaker above the headboard, and the room appeared unnaturally crisp this morning. "Paul Gladstone, please wake up. This is your wake-up call. Paul Gladstone, please wake up." It went on and on. Paul hit the speaker with his fist to no avail. Normally, the system altered his alpha waves directly through his implant, with a slight stimulation of his cerebral cortex and soothing music. I'm awake, he thought. But the computer was not receiving his commands. The speaker kept blaring its morning message over and over. Paul grimaced while throwing the goose pattern covers back and standing up. He would have to vocalize. At first, he could only make rasping sounds from his dry throat. Then he found his voice. "Call, call. System 43, I'm awake. Shut off that goddamn noise." Blessed silence engulfed him as he continued. "Tell me what happened. Is there a problem with the system?" "System 43 is functioning normally. Your implant went offline at 1:21 local time. I suggest you run a diagnostic as soon as possible." "Great, that's all I need. My presentation to the board is today." He coughed, clearing his throat some more. He ran his fingers through his hair and stumbled into the kitchen. "A cold glass of orange juice will do my voice some good." He realized this crisis was not the end of the world, but it might be the end of his 5-year career at MergeTech, unless he did something about it. He threw the empty juice carton down the recycle tube and went to work at the system station on his desk. The surface of the desk came alive with flashing screens, all empty. Most people use direct comm links instead of the archaic touchscreens, now reserved for emergencies and the old-timers too stubborn to get an implant. He called up the diagnostic program window manually and listened to the instructions. The visual graphics it presented on screen were a pale simulation of the implant's download throughput. He smiled. At least he knew how to use the system manually. Some of his colleagues would have been helpless. But then he had always been an independent soul. The screen instructed Paul to remove the plastic cover from the receptacle on the back of his head, which he did, and insert the system's hard link, a small fiber optic cable connected to the wall. The end of the hard link looked like a mechanical worm with hundreds of blunted teeth. Its teeth locked the link to his receptacle at the proper angle for the hair-thin optical fiber to make its connection inside his implant. Colors flashed before Paul's eyes like the afterimage of sunspots. Then the system settled down and began its diagnostic routine. A grid work of colors floated above the carpet, moving with his eyes as he turned his head. Thousands of shades of colors were cycling through the boxes in a circular pattern. After the optical test completed, a simplified 3D schematic of the implant appeared and replaced the grid. Sections of the schematic turned from yellow to green as they passed the diagnostic tests. Red flashed in the small transceiver section, not surprising Paul in the least, indicative of his problem this morning. All the other sections passed muster, and the final auditory diagnostics serenaded him with Vivaldi's Four Seasons. He could hear the third violin out of tune, and the diagnostic shut itself down. Diagnostic complete, Paul Gladstone, implant 4X82867Z200. The system's words floated in his head. Your implant transceiver is not functional. This is a subsystem malfunction of unknown origin. Please make an appointment to see your implant specialist as soon as you can. I can use the hard link to accomplish some work, he asked. Yes, you can, but system procedures advise against using your implant in this capacity. Further damage may result from voltage fluctuations. That was a rhetorical question, he thought. All right, I've been warned. Any messages? Paul's implant specialist was in the NEC Implants building downtown, an imposing structure of granite and glass. He took the elevator to the 13th floor, and soothing jazz music greeted him in the hallway. In the doctor's waiting room, he went up to the clerk at the window. Hello, I'm Paul Gladstone. I called earlier. The clerk's expression didn't change a bit. Ah, yes, Mr. Gladstone. You have a problem with your implant that is preventing you from connecting to the network. That's me, Paul grinned. The clerk continued to look at him as though he were a dead fish. Dr. Carmen is out today. Dr. Aikido will be seeing you today. Oh, I'm sure that'll be all right. One doctor's as good as another, he thought. After a brief wait, a nurse escorted Paul into the examination room. He lay on a padded examination table, and the nurse strapped him in tightly. Is that necessary? He asked. This is for your own safety, she responded with a smile. About the time he was starting to feel claustrophobic, the doctor appeared, a short, bespectacled man with white hair and a large handlebar mustache. Hello, Paul. My name is Dr. Aikido. Pleased to meet you, said Paul, not feeling pleased at all. I understand you're having trouble connecting to the network with your transmitter. Yes, is there anything you can do about it, Doc? Well, let's see, shall we? Dr. Aikido took a cable from the wall and felt around on the back of Paul's head for the receptacle, removing the plastic cover. This might pinch a little, said Dr. Aikido, shoving the cable into Paul's implant forcefully. Before Paul could make a sound, the world turned black. Then as suddenly the view and sounds came back, like flipping a switch. Paul had no sense of time in between. Doc, what just happened? What, Paul? The doctor bent over him and looked into his eyes. Everything turned black for a second, or maybe more, I don't know. I can assure you no time has passed. Whatever you experienced was a momentary glitch. A glitch? Yes, no need to worry. Just let me run the diagnostics and see what we've got here. Okay. Paul didn't feel reassured, but he knew when the need to accept the inevitable appeared. Dr. Aikido ran the same diagnostics as Paul did earlier, and he saw the same colors and shapes. During the auditory test, he noticed the third violin was not out of tune, but it all checked out green as before, so he didn't give it much thought. The transceiver was red. Looks like you need a new transceiver module. That's what probably caused the glitch, said Aikido. I can fix that here in the office, no problem. Great. I have a meeting later, and I need the transceiver to be working, said Paul. What a relief. Dr. Aikido rummaged through some drawers, and came out with a long tool and a small black chip, barely the size of a granule of salt. He inserted the granule, the transceiver module, into the tip of this tool. The tool had a long cable which led to a small box with an antenna. He flipped a switch on the box and it emitted a low humming sound. Paul, this box is a transmitter attached to the tool I'm going to use to fix your problem. Here, look into this monitor and you'll be able to see everything I can see through my implant. He pulled the monitor screen down from its place on the wall and adjusted it so Paul could see. It showed the view from the tip of the tool, which at this magnification had two heads, one of which held the transceiver and another was empty. He placed the tool near the end of the receptacle at the back of Paul's head, and a port opened up. The tool seemed to glide into the open port as the doctor navigated it inside. At the bottom of the port was the transceiver, which looked gray and burnt. The doctor used the empty head of the tool to disconnect the old transceiver and then rotated the head to plug in the new transceiver. The tool backed out of the port along with the old transceiver. Looks like you had some sort of power spike that fried the old transceiver, Paul. You're lucky it didn't damage anything else. The doctor unplugged the cable from Paul's receptacle and returned the cable to its place on the wall. The nurse will be here to remove your restraints. You might feel a little dizzy at first, but you'll get over it. Let the office know if you notice anything else wrong and we'll fix it right up. Thanks, Doc, said Paul, relieved. Paul took a hired car to his office across town. As soon as he stepped off the elevator, his boss intercepted him. Paul, you were supposed to be here 2 hours ago. What kept you? I sent you a message explaining the problem with my implant. Didn't you get the message? Oh, yeah, but I didn't expect it to take this long, his boss smiled. He never smiles. And what's up with his hair today? Paul made his way to his desk and sat down, taking a deep breath. He used his implant and began pulling up items, but when he searched for his presentation file, it wasn't there. That's right, I have a backup copy on my implant. I can just download that. But then he paused, looking at the wall across from his desk. A painting was there that showed a clown holding a bundle of yellow flowers, an impressionist work from France. He could feel the hair on the back of his neck rise. That picture was replaced with a picture of a cat dangling from a rope with the message, "Hang in there, 2 years ago." He stood to leave, the desire to run almost impossible to hold back. Just then his boss appeared at his side, with that weird haircut from 2 years ago. It's time for the presentation, Paul. Are you ready? Sure, I'm ready. Let's go. He guided Paul by the arm to the boardroom down the hall. And as he went, he noticed all the people in the office seemed like cardboard cutouts. No one looked up, offered encouragement, or even waved to him. The board of directors waited in the fishbowl, as they called it, a room with a large oval desk along its length with glass walls all along the hallway side and glass windows to the outside world on the other wall. Paul recognized most of the people at the table, but there was something off about them. "We have a chair for you right here at the end of the table," said his boss. "I would like to say hello to everyone first," said Paul. "Oh, yeah, of course." "Hi, Mary. How's your cat doing?" Paul asked Mary Shotkin, the head of Human Resources. He's doing fine. I thought she was in the veterinary hospital. She's doing well after some tests were done." "Bill, good to see you," Paul addressed the next man sitting beside Mary. "How's that hot rod car you're restoring?" "Couldn't be better. Didn't you tell me the last time we spoke that you sold that because it was just too big of a project?" Yeah. Things are better now that it's gone." "And Jerry, how's your son doing?" "He's fine, just fine." "Jerry?" "Yes?" "You don't have a son." "Okay, that's enough with the introductions. Let's see the report. That's what we're here for," said CEO Larry Merkins at the other end of the table. Everyone looked at Paul. "We have a screen for you to use with your implant here," said his boss, gesturing towards the large screen on the wall. "Okay, here's the thing. I'm having a hard time believing what's happening here, Larry. You haven't worn that suit in 5 years. Gary, where's the scar on your cheek you got from that horse riding incident last year? Jane, why are your eyes green? Haven't they always been blue? And aside from Mary, Bill, and Jerry, I bet I could ask anyone here a question they'll get wrong in a pretty reliable basis," said Paul. "Paul," said his boss, "give the presentation or you follow me to my office. This is insubordination." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Paul said. "Come with me." They exited the conference room and went down the hall to his boss's office. The office was as nondescript as the others, and yet Paul detected some inconsistencies here as well. The nameplate on the door was the wrong color, the furnishings and art weren't the same, and more importantly, his boss was acting strangely. He gestured for Paul to sit as he went around behind the desk. "No, I prefer to stand," said Paul. "Suit yourself. You can't be acting like this to the board. You must give your report. John, you should have the report already on your storage here in the office. You can give the report."
Let's see what you got.
"Oh, well, it's missing for some reason. You have to either give the report or give me the files right now." "John, what is the name of your dog?" "My what?" Paul's boss looked disconcerted. "You should be able to easily answer that question. I'm not going to do any such thing. You're being insubordinate. If you don't present the report, I'll have to fire you." "Fire me then." "You're fired." Paul's boss picked up the phone and hit a button. "Security, come to my office now. We have to escort a former employee out of the building." He covered the mouthpiece of the phone with his hand. "Paul, we're going to have to copy that file down from your implant, so stay right here." "Yes, I'll wait." Paul saw his moment and ducked out the door, heading for the elevators. Halfway down the hall, the elevator doors opened and two burly security guards appeared and locked eyes with him. They began running towards him. The chase was on. Paul turned around and ran back down the hall towards his boss's office, meeting his boss entangled in the telephone cable just as he exited the door. Paul bumped into him and knocked him down to get past. "All operatives, get him," John said, looking at Paul. People in the office stopped whatever they were doing, stood up, and joined the chase. "Oh shit, this is going to get bad to worse," he thought. He vaulted over his boss's legs and ran to the stairway door, glancing back to see a knot of people trying to get past his boss prostrate on the floor. Paul closed the door and jammed a fire extinguisher into the handle to prevent anyone from following him. He could hear footsteps and voices coming from below and echoing throughout the stairwell. He went up. "How is this possible? Is this some kind of simulation in my implant?" Paul thought as he raced up the stairs. "When did it happen? When I woke up at the doctor's office? Have I been awake at all? Or is this just a bad dream?" Paul's fears gathered momentum and propelled him up the stairwell. It sounded like a giant mob was now following him upwards. He had to keep reminding himself that it was all fake, but at the same token, it won't be good for them to stop whatever freedom of thought and action I still have. Huffing and puffing, he finally made it to the top of the stairs and found a door leading to the roof. "Why am I so tired? This isn't real," he thought. Thankfully, it was not locked. He burst through onto the roof and could see the city laid out before him. He found an air conditioning unit to hide behind. Just as he hid, the door smashed open like a crack of thunder, and he could hear the footsteps of hundreds of people come through the door and spread out across the rooftop. "He's here!" a voice yelled nearby. He stood up, prepared to fight, and saw hundreds of people in a half circle around his place by the edge of the building. All eyes on him. His boss pushed towards him, the front of the crowd. "Paul, give yourself up. You know you can't get away from here." "Just tell me one thing before I do." "Sure. What's this all about? My report will go public in a few days anyway. Why all this effort to get it out of my head?" "I don't really understand the why behind this. I'm just an AI hired to get it out of you for my client." "And who would that be?" "I can't tell you that. It's all about monetary transactions for my creator, who gives me a target and objective. I would try to infer the reason behind it, but your guess would be as good as mine." "One more question." "Sure, I like talking to meatbags." "What's your name?" "My name is Dark Purpose 79924 at Grinch." "Now let's be reasonable and go inside, shall we?" With that, Paul leaned back and fell off the roof. Dark Purpose's startled look made Paul happy in that moment. Frozen in time and free fell, accelerating on his way to the ground. "God, this is going to hurt," he thought in his last second. Paul woke up, wrapped in his blankets like a taco, barely able to move. Holy crap, was this a dream? He twisted and turned, got out of his covers and sat up. "System 43, what is the status of my implant?" "Implant 4X82867Z200 is 100% functional. However, in the last 5 minutes before you woke up, it was sending and receiving data at a high rate. Your sleep pattern never reached delta wave, low frequency, high amplitude, indicative of deep sleep, and remained in REM sleep throughout this period. The encrypted data was indecipherable to me. This may be some sort of Trojan programming in your implant. Please make an appointment to see your implant specialist as soon as you can. System 43, call the police. I believe I've been the subject of a network hacking attack. Shit, said the woman. What is it? Dark Purpose 79924 at Grinch reports he lost connectivity to the subject. Damn, the model must have been too brittle. Fucking AI. I know. Why can't they just kidnap people like they used to back in the day? Way easier to extract the data. She laughed. We better pack up now, no telling how long before Interpol gets on our asses. Yeah, the man began turning off, unplugging and packing the gear expertly as the woman did the same with her equipment. They wiped down all the surfaces and ran UV lights over it all again to destroy any DNA data remaining. Bundled against the wind and snow, the two figures struggled out of the cabin and down the mountain through the drifts on the way to their extraction point. And so ends today's story. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell.